Welcome everyone to the Heritage Preservation Commission meeting. I'm Teresa Kinker, the current chair of the commission, and the Heritage Preservation Commission reviews applications for projects, heritage sites within the heritage districts. And the commission also serves as an advisory body to the mayor and the city council on municipal heritage preservation matters for the city of St. Paul. And I'd ask everybody to please make sure they're on mute when they're not speaking, so we're not getting any background noise here. Thank you. All documentation used for this meeting is available on the commission website at www.stpaul.gov/HPC, and no new documents will be discussed or recognized at today's meeting. Notice of this meeting was posted in the legal ledger and sent to the St. Paul citywide early notification system. To sign up for the ENS, please visit the city website at www.stpaul.gov. If you have any questions about the notice, please contact the HPC staff. As I said during the meeting, please mute your microphones except when recognized by the chair to speak. You can unmute from your computer by pressing the microphone button or from your phone by pressing *6. After being recognized by the chair, commissioners and staff will need to state their name before speaking, and everyone else will need to state their name and address before speaking. All deliberation and voting will be done via a roll call conducted by the chair, and staff will be monitoring microphones and muting participants as needed. So with that, I'll call the roll of the commissioners. Commissioner George. Commissioner Ostin. We're here.
Here.
Oh, thank you. Commissioner Douglas.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner McDonald.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Peroka.
Here.
And Commissioner Nelson.
I'm here.
Thank you. We have
Chair, sorry, this is George Gauze. I think I should take a moment to interrupt here and just say that Mayor's office had reached out to Robert Lupke, and he has decided to resign from the commission, stating that he doesn't have time and he doesn't care for remote meetings. So I just wanted to take a moment to bring that up. Thanks.
Thank you. We have an agenda for today's meeting. If I could have a motion and a second for adoption of the agenda.
This is Nelson, so moved.
Thank you. And a second on that?
It's Douglas. I'm second.
Thank you. Any opposition to the motion to adopt the agenda? Hearing none, that motion passed. Are there any conflicts of interest today? Nope, none. Thank you. Then we have our minutes from our last meeting on October 4th. Is that right? Did anybody notice any major edits needed on the submitted minutes? Commissioner Peroka, was there something you wanted to?
I couldn't find it, and so I'll just be more diligent next time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. But then if the minutes are true and correct, can I have a motion and a second for approval of the minutes?
This is Nelson, so moved.
Thank you. Second on that, please.
Ostin, second.
Thank you. Any opposition to the motion for approval of the minutes? If not, the minutes are approved. So our first order of business today is the pre-application for the infill construction at 703 Surrey Avenue. And we'll have the staff presentation first.
All right, thank you. 703 Surrey Avenue. This is in Dayton's Bluff Historic District. This is a pre-application discussion. We will not be taking any action from the HPC on this, just giving comments back to the potential applicant for a future public hearing. 703 Surrey is currently vacant. The proposal is for a new single-family residential structure with an attached garage. Height would be approximately 28 feet, width 22 feet, 1,700 square feet, with vinyl siding, vinyl windows, and asphalt shingle roofing. The design as submitted has several challenges with the Dayton's Bluff guidelines. In particular, and I'll be reading from section 74.90, new construction and additions in the Dayton's Bluff guidelines. The objective of guidelines is to encourage a high standard of historically compatible new design. Staff felt this design was not compatible with the district's scale and standard of design. There are several features to the design that don't match what's happening in Dayton's Bluff, or they are very rarely seen in Dayton's Bluff. The second is item C1, massing and scale. New construction should conform to surrounding structures. The mass of the proposed structure has a nested gable, which is not common for the area. There are a few in the area, but it's very much not common. It's really something that's outside the architectural period for Dayton's Bluff. The third would be D1, roofs. New construction should relate to the predominant roof shape of nearby buildings. We do have front-facing gables. They're very common in the district, but the nested gable is something that's very much different, a very much later architectural period. Sometimes we find we have a front porch that's been enclosed, and that may produce the feel and look of a nested gable, but it's not the traditional nested gable architecturally. Item 4 would be D3, porches and decks. Porches are a standard feature to many historic houses in the district, whether enclosed or unenclosed. They are an important part of the streetscape. So there's on this design, there is a small entry porch that's found over the front door, and there's a small awning contained over the front portion of the garage. I'll let the commission deliberate if that's enough of a porch, but we do see we do see a lot of just entry porches, stoop porches in Dayton's Bluff, but we do also see much larger porches. And then item E, accessory buildings from 74.90. Garages should not be attached to the front of the building and should only be attached if not visible from the public way. This is a really challenged lot. It's very small. There's no alley at the rear. I mean, the applicant has researched some possibility of easements. I'll let him go further into that. But due to the siding and neighborhood structures, you know, it's going to be tough for him to do anything to get a car off of the street. And I don't know if maybe there's an option that he looks into a dedicated spot in front of the property. There is a cost to that from Public Works, but right now the design calls for a integral garage in the front facade, which we do not see any in Dayton's Bluff, so in historic structures. So so there's our comments. I'd be happy to take some questions. I will say that a couple of things like materials and details, which is in the guidelines, item C2, vinyl windows and siding are allowed in Dayton's Bluff if they are appropriately detailed for the district, which would be a 4-inch reveal and a profile edge to the window. So I will say that. So are there any questions?
Are there any questions for staff from the commissioners?
This is Commissioner McDonald.
Yes, Commissioner McDonald.
I don't know that I have questions, but I have a few comments. I guess I don't mind in general what I'm seeing presented. The term nested gables, I understand it, but it's new to me. There seems to be enough variety in other facades that I wouldn't think that's an issue. And if it was just pulling the main gable forward to coincide with the lesser gable, I think would be a fine solution. I think the porch is big enough. I think the garage entrance is just a nod to practicality. My only concern really with the design presented is the window proportions. In looking at the adjacent properties, the window proportions are much more vertical. And perhaps if the single window over the front door was paired and the two windows over the garage were 3-part, I guess I wouldn't have any problem with the design I'm seeing. So that's my take on it.
Thank you, Commissioner McDonald. Any other questions for staff on this application?
This is Nelson. I have one or two. I see that there are no street-facing garages in any historic structures, but quite nearby at 212 Bates, just about maybe 2 blocks from there are some newer buildings. They look like row houses or condos, 3 of them, if I remember right, that have front-facing garage doors. They look like they're just white metal. I wonder, George, did that come before HPC?
I will check very quickly. Ask the rest of your questions while I'm looking it up.
Okay. The other one's about garages too. You know, there are a lot of very attractive garage doors out there on the market now. Garage doors aren't like they used to be. And I hear what Commissioner McDonald said and what you said about the tiny size of that lot and the tremendous difficulty of getting a place to put a car in that location. So I'm wondering if it's within the realm of human possibility to work with the applicant on finding a garage door that doesn't jar, that doesn't look like the standard white metal garage door, that could perhaps find a way to accommodate his needs and the visual requirements of the district.
That certainly could be a commissioner comment. I mean, if you're fine with garage doors on the front, I mean, and the condition's going to be that it has, we need a door that fits a little better. I mean, that's certainly a comment we can pass on, and yeah.
Is the applicant with us?
He is. We
Okay.
were just doing the questions to me.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I will want to ask him about it. No, am I fine with it? I don't know.
Okay.
As you point out, the design guidelines for Dayton's Bluff forbid it. And I've looked around in the Department of Interior standards, and boy, there's not much helpful guidance there.
No.
So it's just a really difficult problem. I think one more in your report, you noted the front door and window out of alignment with one another. That looks like it should be an easy problem to solve. Does it seem that way to you?
I thought so. Yeah. When I look at the design, my eye goes right to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. More so than the garage door. So, and I realize when you're standing on the sidewalk, you're probably not going to perceive it the same way. But I'm looking at the buildings on Bates. I do not see that the commission reviewed these.
Huh.
I'll look one more other spot. Christine, you're on. Do you remember these?
If I'm recalling, it's the ones that are on the east side of Bates.
That's right.
Yes. Those I want to say were constructed just before or just as the district was being designated.
I
So
see.
I'd say I'm about 70% sure that they were not a commission review.
They would have presented a difficult problem, wouldn't they?
The same group, Dayton's Bluff Neighborhood Housing, who constructed those, also constructed the ones across the street, which are also row houses, but those were reviewed by the commission. And those ones, they're on a triangle property and they have garage doors facing the back, but it's still a primary view, but I remember that being slightly controversial.
Okay, I think those are all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Nelson. Any other questions for staff? Commissioner Peroutka?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Just for clarification on the nested gables, I think I recall hearing that term in association with the period style of Tudor revival. Is there someone on staff that might be able to flesh that out a little bit more?
Well, when I was in college, 100 years ago, when I say nested gable, yes, I mean it's predominantly Tudor revival. It's some of the later Victorian type structures where you have that smaller but larger gable inside of a large gable. It's a way to break up that massing. Perhaps make the building look a little more fancy than just a single front gable structure. So it's perfectly fine architectural style. I guess I equate it with being a much later time period than what Dayton's Bluff is. Dayton's Bluff has a lot of very simple but elegant structures. That single gable, and, simple material use, so like Commissioner McDonald was talking about the windows, paired windows and things like that. But again, I do want to kind of always come back to that this is a very challenged lot. What the architect is doing is trying to design something for a lot that is extremely small. So that's going to be challenging here. So,
George, this is Terry. I have a question. I think maybe you are alluded to this, but there's no way to build like even a single lane driveway that would go around to the back of the house to.
Yeah, I've explored that with the applicant architect. There's not. And he can explain this further, but both structures on either side are very close. So we're not going to be able to we'll have to get zoning setbacks in, and then to get some sort of drive. I was wondering if maybe there was some way to do some sort of garage that is 5 to 10 feet back on the side, and we assist them with getting some sort of variance to have a one. But even then, it would violate just about all the setbacks. He would have to really move the whole structure over and try to get some sort of agreement or purchase some land to do that. So yeah, it would be difficult. There would have to be something more done than just with this design. So
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for staff? Let me just run through the roll to make sure we're not missing anybody. Commissioner Ostin, any questions for staff?
No questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Douglas?
No questions.
Thank you. Commissioner McDonald, anything further?
Nothing further.
Thank you. Commissioner Peroka?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And Commissioner Nelson?
Nothing more.
Okay, thank you. With that, then, we will have the presentation from the applicant.
Hello, commissioners. My name is Alexander Vachanenko, and I am the applicant. I was looking into options, what can be built on this lot, and that's the design that we came up with. And biggest issues that I ran into is that it's really narrow lot. It's only 30 feet wide. Typical lot in this area is 40 feet wide, which is 10 feet wider than the lot I own. And that creates biggest issue. It would be a 40-foot lot. It would be possible to make 10-foot or 15-foot wide alley to get to the back of the property and build a detached structure there for a garage. But it's impossible on this lot. And I spent some time talking to the neighbors, and a few of the neighbors are willing to support front-facing garage. They have no problems with that. Few other neighbors said that they don't like the idea because nobody else have the garage, even that I explained it to them. But they also had a concern that there is not a lot of parking on the street. There is always a lot of cars on the street. And if I'm going to build a house there, there's going to be at least one, maybe two more cars parked on the street if this house is not going to have a driveway or a garage in the front. So that, by removing the garage, we're going to create another issue with the neighbors. And another big concern that few of the neighbors mentioned to me about is that they've been asking whether it's going to be a rental property or it's going to be owned by owners, and owners going to live in a property. And in my understanding, if we're going to build a house without a garage, there is a bigger possibility that landlord is going to purchase it and rent it. And if the house is going to have a garage, there is more possibilities that people are going to prefer to buy it and live in a house. So by having a garage, I think it's better for the neighborhood, because there's going to be less cars on the street and there's more chances that it's going to be owner occupied. And when I was talking to the neighbors, I found out that almost every other house is rental property. So, and a few other things that you commissioners mentioned is that front door is not aligned with the window above. I can fix that. It's not an issue. Another thing, having the two windows above the door can be done. 3 windows on the front can be replaced. Those 2 windows can be replaced with 3 windows, more narrower ones. That's possible. We can fix that, and we can solve those issues. But the garage is the biggest concern that I have. I really need a garage, and if we can keep it there, it will be really, really good. And yes, we can put awesome door in there. That's gonna match the entry door. It's gonna have windows up, on the top of the door. it's gonna not just, you know, ship a simple one, but we're gonna find something that you guys gonna approve. I can send you some samples to look at, and maybe we can find a solution there.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant? From the commissioners? No?
Well, no, this is Commissioner Nelson.
Commissioner, no.
I want to say first, you in your presentation, you answered most of my questions, but let me preface by saying this is a very challenged block and a very difficult lot on that challenged block. So I just want to say, commend you for the effort to try to make something work in that difficult spot. You heard a lot of comment about nested gable. I, like everybody else, I think had to look that up, so I understood what it was. But can you talk about that particular design choice?
One of the reasons we went with a nested gable is because we can have same trusses from front to back. But and there's one house on Bates, 257 Bates Avenue, which is just on the other side of my property, and that house have a nested gable. So that was the reason it was easier for us to build, and it was kind of matching the house on the other side of the street. So that was the idea that we used. But if we have to, if you're gonna tell us that you don't want that nested gable there, we're gonna end up with one gable in the front, and then that nested gable we're probably gonna convert into a heap roof, which is doable from a design standpoint, from architectural standpoint. It's doable. It's not an issue, I think.
Okay. Well, I hear you that you're very open to the idea of as elegant a garage door as can be done. I'm going to say that given the difficulty of that spot and the impracticality of having a house without a garage, even though this would violate the Dayton's Bluff guidelines, on balance, I would be inclined, as things are right now, to say, okay. As for the nested gable, yeah, I just hope you will work with staff. It doesn't offend me, but of course, I'm only looking at the rendering. It's hard to imagine how it would actually look in reality. And then I would like to echo Commissioner McDonald's remarks about verticality of windows. All around the neighborhood, the windows are all practically relentlessly vertical, even the windows on the sides of the house. So maintaining that verticality, I think, would really help your design. I think that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Okay, in regards to vertical windows, one more thing. Most of the windows in the neighborhood are either single hung or double hung. And if you look up today's code, they are not egress. So the only way to have single hung or double hung windows is to make them wider. Minimum egress window is gonna be 36 inches by 60 inches. I can install casement windows. They can be 28 inches wide. So we can make them a little bit narrower, but still we are not gonna achieve that single hung look. We can have some narrower casement windows. It's gonna help, but they're not gonna be as narrow. They're not gonna be like 20 or 24 inches wide as the typical that neighborhood.
Yeah, casement windows probably present issues of their own. So I think I'll leave that one for you and staff to work out as best you can. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Commissioner Peroka, not for staff, for the applicant, Commissioner Peroka.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just looking up in the Dayton's Bluff section of the St. Paul Heritage Preservation Commissioner's Handbook and the architectural styles. Oh, and by the way, I want to say thank the applicant for being here, and that the nested gable does not offend me either. But according to the handbook, the architectural styles and building types that inform the historic district are of late 19th century vernacular, classical revival and colonial revival styles, Queen Anne and arts and crafts. As far as gables, the information that it provides are characteristics, steeply pitched, hip or gable roof, cross gable roofs, and also with dormers. So this is just some information about the styles and the period of significance from the district. But it does not mention nested gables or Tudor revival. But again, the style doesn't necessarily offend me. Doesn't offend me at all, but there are other styles that are more consistent with the historic district. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Brokaw. Any other questions for the applicant?
This is Commissioner McDonald.
Yes.
I too would like to commend the owner for participating in our meeting today and also for being willing to adjust the design to accommodate various opinions. Regarding the exit windows, in looking at the floor plan, I don't know that the front facade, which is the most important one, needs exit windows. If you added one to the side of the building there, you also have other windows in other bedrooms that would be discrete and also exit windows. So I think that whole issue can be worked out rather well. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions from the commissioners for the applicant? If not, well, let me just run through the roll just to make sure we're not missing anybody. Commissioner Ostin?
Thank you. No questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Douglas?
I don't have any questions, just maybe a comment. I think the nested gables are beautiful, and a lot of the old neighborhoods in St. Paul have those. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner McDonald, anything further?
Nothing further.
Commissioner Peroutka?
Nothing further.
And Commissioner Nelson?
Nothing more.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wachenko, for, as we've said, coming here and your presentation today and answering our questions and listening to our comments. Staff, was there any written testimony received on this application?
There was not.
Okay, thank you. And are there any members of the public on this call that would like to testify as to this pre-application or comment on this pre-application? Let me just state that again. Are there any members of the public or the neighborhood that would like to speak to this pre-application on this call? Okay, well, hearing none, then we will move to commissioner comments and discussion of the pre-application and any comments we want to make sure that the applicant hears and has access to. So I'll open it up for further discussion or comments by the commissioners. Anything to add to that that we've already not covered or discussed?
This is Nelson. Can I ask staff one more question?
Sure.
I had this in my notes and then failed to ask. Is there another building in that historic district that you could point to or point the applicant toward that might serve as a model for how to make this particular structure the best that it can be under the circumstances?
I don't know if there's one in Dayton's Bluff. We can certainly work with him to get the window proportions and the pairings, and also, like Commissioner McDonald said, work with on the egress requirements and what exactly he needs to do. So, and a elegant front door. So we can give those comments to him and help him get something that will come back. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, let me just run through the roll call one last time to make sure we don't have any further comments out there for the applicant. Commissioner Ostin.
No, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Douglas.
No more comment.
Thank you. Commissioner McDonald, anything further?
No, we're good. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Proka.
Oh, yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to thank the applicant again and wish him the best of luck. This is a very good proposal, and thank you for investing in the Dayton's Bluff Historic District.
Thank you. Commissioner Nelson, anything further?
I'm done.
Okay, thank you. Well, again, thanks again, Mr. Rodchenko, and I guess we'll look forward to seeing your final application on this piece of property.
Thank you.
With that, we can move on to our second item of business today, which is the designation for the home at 402 Hall on the west side.
Hello,
And-
commissioners. This is Christine.
Oh, hi, Christine.
It's been a while,
Yes.
but I'm happy to bring before you this nomination for the Dwight Henderson and Clara Watson house and barn at 402 Hall Avenue on the west side of St. Paul. The nomination has been brought forward by its current owner, Mark Thomas, who has lived there since the early 90s. You received links to the staff report, as well as the nomination and a couple other materials. To summarize, generally, this property meets two criteria for designation. That is criteria 3, its identification with a person or persons who significantly contributed to the culture and development of St. Paul. That would be the architect Cass Gilbert. As well as criteria 5, its identification as the work of an architect, engineer, or master builder whose individual work has influenced the development of the city of St. Paul. Again, that is also Cass Gilbert. You should have received in an email today a draft resolution which kind of summarizes what the commission is what we're looking for the commission to make a decision on and move forward this in the process. The process for designation is outlined in the code citations where it explains that the HPC would review, make a recommendation to City Council, who has the ultimate authority in designation. They would also forward this to the Planning Commission for review and comment. As well as to the State Historical Society is how it's stated in our guidelines, but it's meant to be the State Historic Preservation Office, which at the time was part of the State Historical Society, but is now part of the Department of Administration. There would be, again, a hearing at City Council. There'd be 3 readings, with one of them being a hearing. But all of this information from the State Historic Preservation Office, the Planning Commission, and the Heritage Preservation Commission would ultimately go to the City Council, who, upon holding a hearing, would make a decision either for designating the property as a heritage preservation site or requesting more information. But since this is being proposed for designation by the owner, there's not any controversy expected here. All properties within 100 feet were notified of the hearing in accordance with our requirements. Owner was sent the information as well, and it was posted to the legal ledger 20 days prior to the hearing. And so the findings basically summarize what I've just explained. And I am happy to answer any questions that the commission may have.
Thank you, Christine. Any questions for staff from the commissioners?
Oh, well, this is Nelson again. First, I have in front of me the draft motion, I guess it is, that came by email today. And I noticed that in the next to last line, the address is given as 402 Randolph instead of Hall.
Oh, thank you. I I did copy that motion from a previous nomination for a suggested motion, so I can definitely adjust that.
That's a mistake we've all made.
Oh, yes.
Well, I have a question. Obviously, we have passed on this before when it was nominated for the National Register. And I wonder why, if you know, the owner is asking for a local designation too.
So I would rather have the owner answer that question as they are on this call. So if you
Okay.
can wait a few minutes, I would love, I'd love to give him the opportunity to express that.
Yes, that makes perfect sense.
When he did pursue the National Register nomination and it did come before the HPC, I believe there was some explanation of that earlier, but I sadly do not have my notes from that meeting.
No, I'll defer my question then to the appropriate person. Thank you.
Any other questions for staff on this designation?
This is Commissioner McDonald.
Yes, Commissioner McDonald.
I don't have any issue with it, but often when a building has been moved, that sort of colors the view of its historicity. With the barn, at least in my view, it's essentially on the same property, so I didn't consider it a problem. Does that need to be addressed further in the nomination?
Commissioner McDonald, it does not. Actually, after the National Register nomination went forward with the House, and there was concern about the barn and the fact that it had been moved on the site, there was an amendment made and the National Register listed the barn as a contributing element to the property. It is within the period of significance there as well. And so because the moving of the barn was done by the owner, the original owner, and within the period of significance, there was not an issue.
Very good, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Are there any other questions for me?
Oh, sorry, I muted myself there. Okay, any other questions for staff? Let me just run through the roll one more time just to make sure we're not missing anybody on this. Commissioner Ostin?
No questions.
Commissioner Douglas?
No questions.
Commissioner McDonald?
Nothing further.
Commissioner Proka?
No questions.
And Commissioner Nelson?
Nothing more.
Okay, thank you. Then if we can have the applicant presentation. And I guess I'd ask you to state your name and address, and the applicant has up to 15 minutes to make their presentation to the commission. Is the applicant on the line?
Let me check here real quick. Yes, and I'm going to, let's see, it looks like he's muted.
It's a good thing this pandemic has been so long because it's all taking us a long time to figure out how to use this technology. Be really good at it by the time we get to the end of it.
Let me see. George, are you able to unmute?
I'm not. He looks like he's on a phone.
Yes.
So he needs to do, it's the star 6, right? Or star 9. I always get that mixed up.
Star 6, yeah.
Star 6. Yep. So if he can do star 6, he should unmute himself.
As
There you go.
I am now unmuted.
Welcome.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you. I am a technological primitive, so this is some accomplishment. So my name is Mark Thomas, and my address is 402 Hall Avenue in St. Paul on the west side. My late partner and I bought the house in May 19th, 1993. And it was covered in asbestos, and there was nothing known about the architect, only the family that built the house. And over time, we became aware that it had some design elements that clearly were the work of someone who was pretty accomplished. And over time, thanks to Tom Blank, we found the plans for the house in the New York Historical Society. So over that period of time, from about 1997 until now, John and I, and of course now I, have been at work to restore it sensitively to its as close to original condition as we could. And that gives you a thumbnail sketch of what I have attempted to accomplish. And as far as the city register part of the issue here, I had thought, being in some ways intensely local and feeling that community fabric involves having something in community that is cultivated locally, that a city register nomination or a city register designation is a what would you call it? It's capital, social capital, on which can be built efforts and community involvement that can raise up the entire community. And to that end, I felt that city register designation is significant. The other part of it was that there are enforcement aspects to a city designation. This is what I understand, and if I'm wrong, please correct me. But there is what I understand is that there's the potential for an easement for certain aspects of the property, the house itself, that would give some enforcement abilities in the future should someone decide to do something to the detriment of the property or the house. So that's sort of a thumbnail sketch of my involvement with the house.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Are there any questions for the applicant by the commissioners, from the commissioners? Commissioner Perouka?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for coming here today for the applicant. I'm just curious, when did you first get the clue? Not only was it by somebody who knew what they were doing and was a cut above everyone else, but finding the floor plans in the New York City Public Library of all places, how did they end up there? Thank you.
Well, yes. Well, we moved in, as I say, in 1993, and well, I guess I have to say with good with apologies to John, that I became aware, I've been looking at it, it's clear to me that somebody was not only paying attention to design of the outside and in fact pairs of the elevations, and that this was also matched by how the inside and the outside were related to each other. Really, what clearly showed that somebody was thinking, inside and outside at the same time. Was number one. Number two, the first person to look at it was Kurt Schwichtenberg back in 1994, and he was walking around the back with me, and he looked up and saw the southern elevation, which actually has three little windows that you also see at in the Newport Casino. And he looked at me and he said, "Well, this reminds me of McKim Mead and White." And at that point, he didn't tell me about the three little windows. I learned that later, but that was the first thing that piqued my interest in thinking, okay, I have some work to do here to try and figure out if someone in fact had designed this. And then I managed to find Paul Larson, and Paul came around and looked at it, and he didn't say much. And after we got through the National Register, he told me I had strong feelings about this, but there was nothing I could. There was no data, historic data that I could hang my hat on. So that much is part of the original history. The other part was that Tom Blank was doing a chapter on Gilbert's early work, and he went to the New York Historical Society, where some of Gilbert's papers were donated. Some of them went to the Smithsonian, some went to the New York Historical Society, among a couple of other places. And he found a carton, or let's say a box of Gilbert's drawings, and and somebody in 1970 had done a catalog of the box and basically listed what was in there, but it had never been curated. So he saw the list and it said Watson House, St. Paul. So he came back to St. Paul, looked at the city directory, and then showed up at our back door saying, "I think this may be a Cass Gilbert." And my partner was cooking dinner, and he looked around. He said, "Nobody designed this house. The contractor did it as he went along." But Blank persisted, and he put me in touch with the curator at that point. I think it was Valerie. Can't remember her last name. But anyway, over 6 months, they had to curate it, which they took it out and conserved it. It was a set of plans of all the elevations and all the floors on linen in perfect condition. So the fact that it was a small project for probably a family friend meant that once it went back into its tube, it stayed there. So that's another thumbnail sketch, but it's a very interesting history.
Wow, amazing. What a discovery. And you've done so much with it, you and your late partner. Thank you so much.
Well, it's, as I say, the story isn't finished. I am in Connecticut now. I'm here working at a community health center, but I have been doing family history research in the family that built the house. Their name was Watson and Chapman. And I have also since found Cass Gilbert's great grandparents' location, which is within 15 miles of Watson's mother's place of birth. So it was clear that there was some sort of a Connecticut meritocracy in St. Paul, and it's not clear to me. And Mrs. Post, what is her name? Gilbert's great granddaughter, Helen Post Curry. She lives out in Connecticut now. Of course, she's been back and forth. But the things that I am finding here, she doesn't know about. So, this is just, the story continues to unfold. And, this has life that goes goes back to the early days of European settlement here. One is Plymouth, 1632, Hartford, 1637, Norwich, 1657. So again, this is part of a larger picture, and it's great to have something on the ground that in some ways is a, let's say, where two families crossed paths and provided something of great value to St. Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Mr. Thomas from the commissioners?
Well, this is Nelson. This is not a question. This is just thank you for all you've done. You may remember some months ago, I was walking in your neighborhood showing it to my neighbor Jeff, who's from Texas and was unfamiliar with the neighborhood. And you came out and you told us some stories. It was quite fun to have the owner pop out and tell us the story of the house. And also, I love your landscaping.
That is an interesting one, and I could go on about that too, but
that's probably outside of our purview. But needless to say, you have my support for this application. That's all.
Okay. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant? Let me just run through the roll to make sure we're not missing anyone. Commissioner Osterman.
Yeah, I just want to thank the applicant as well. I think this is incredible, and I appreciate all the work that you've done for the community. And I wish we could designate the landscaping with it, but happy to go with this.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Douglas.
Nothing further.
Thank you. Commissioner McDonald.
No questions, but I think the nomination is excellent and the case for significance is unequivocal, and I would strongly support the nomination.
Thank you. Commissioner Perotka, anything further?
Nothing further. Thank you.
And Commissioner Nelson, anything further?
Nothing more.
Thank you. See, I know we did receive one letter from a neighbor that was circulated to the commission. Was there any other written testimony received by the commission, by the staff?
Chair, other than the letter from Craig David, which was gushingly in support of this nomination,
Right.
I haven't received any other correspondence. George, have you received anything?
I have not. No.
Okay, thank you. Are there any members of the public on this call who would like to comment or testify as to this designation?
May I speak briefly? This is Nicole Foss. I just wanted to say that I met Mark several years ago in the West Side neighborhood, and he's been an incredible force of raising awareness, interest, and enthusiasm in the history and architecture of this neighborhood. He's made a huge difference in my life, and I know many others through his work on this house and his generosity with his knowledge and passion. So I just want to express my exuberant support of this as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Foss, could you just state your address for the record, please?
I'm actually have the pleasure of renting 402 Hallwell. Mark is in Connecticut, so it is my address at this time. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Any other members of the public on the line who would like to comment on this designation? Not hearing none, then I'll ask if there is a motion and a second for the designation application.
Well, this is Nelson. I'm not sure how to do this. I have before me the proposed motion that was sent around today. It seems a bit long to read it. So may I put it this way? I move that we adopt the proposed motion sent to us by email this afternoon, with the one correction that in the next to last line, the word Randolph be changed to the word Hall. That's my motion.
Okay. Thank you. And I
Madam
mean, just
Chair,
yes.
this
Commissioner
is
Peroka.
Joe Perotka. I second the motion.
Okay, thank you. And just to be clear, the motion is to recommend designation of the property, right?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. So we'll open up commissioner deliberation on that motion. Anything further any of the commissioners want to say, discuss with respect to that pending motion? Unusual. Okay, let me just go through the roll. Okay, there we go. Commissioner Peroka.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I just didn't want to pass up a moment to say something else about this superlative nomination, and that'll rank right up there with Cass Gilbert, with other great St. Paul architects, and to name just a few others, Cap Wigington and Clarence Johnston Sr. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion among the commissioners on the pending motion? Commissioner Ostin, anything further?
Nothing further.
Thank you. Commissioner Douglas?
Nothing further.
Thank you. Commissioner McDonald?
Nothing further.
Thank you. Commissioner Peroka, anything further?
No.
And Commissioner Nelson?
I'm ready to vote.
Okay. Well, let's do that then. Commissioner Ostin, how do you vote on that motion?
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Douglas?
I vote aye.
Commissioner McDonald?
Yes.
And Commissioner Peroka?
I vote aye with pleasure.
Thank you. And Commissioner Nelson?
Yes.
Thank you. So that motion passed, and thank you again, Mr. Thomas. And I'm sure you'll be working with staff for kind of what the next steps are before going to the city council. So thanks again.
And thank you for your stewardship.
And with that, that's our last item of business. Unless there's anybody who has anything more, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
This is Nelson, so moved.
Thank you. And a second on that, please.
Douglas, I second.
Thank you. Any opposition? Hearing none. We are in adjournment. So